We are now entering into a very important period in mother's life. At the age of 36, she is visiting India for the first time. It was early in March 1914 that she left France. There is, however, an interesting item in her diary dated March 3. It says, "As the day of departure draws near, I enter into a kind of communion. I turn with a fond solemnity towards all those thousand little things around us which have silently, for so many years, played their role of faithful friends. I thank them gratefully for all the charm they were able to give to the outer side of our life. I wish that if they are destined to pass into other hands than ours, for any length of time, these hands may be gentle to them and know all the respect that is due to what thy divine love, O Lord, has brought out from the dark inconscience of chaos." You will note here her tender feelings for what she calls little things around, which lend charm to the outer side of life. That attitude continued throughout her life. She never treated things as things. She always treated them as friends. She used to have drawers full of blocks, with small graphs of this size and slightly bigger and things like that, which used to come from France. And they were there. Sri Aurobindo used to use some of them for writing Savitri. And she had them in different rooms. She never believed in memory. And she told her secretaries not to believe in memory, but always to note down. And even as regards herself, whose memory was phenomenal, in each room, in each corner, table, almirah shelf, whatever, there would be always a block, what we call pad of paper, small, with a pencil, so that anything that she remembered at that time, or somebody spoke and it had to be followed up, she would always note there. So she had number of them. It was easy to get them before the Second World War, before the 1939-40. And they were there, filling up all the drawers. So one day, when some such pads were needed, Champaklal asked her whether they could empty the drawers and bring them out, and he said that all the paper is getting brittle, they are gathering spots, yellow spots, so why not use them up? She wouldn't reply immediately, and then she explained her reluctance
candidate, Congress candidate, Congress candidate. Mr. A. Kanyar, Mr. A. Kanyar, Mr. A. Kanyar. Ladies and gentlemen, respected fans, ladies and gentlemen, please select and select Mr. A. Kanyar, Congress candidate, again. Please select and select Mr. Kanyar, Congress candidate. Our symbol is hand. Our symbol is hand.
She explained that all those blocks were there as friends. That's all that she said. They are there as friends. And perhaps she didn't like to dislodge them. I think that was the last time when she was reminded. She had not forgotten. She knew very well that those blocks are there. So that tenderness of intimacy with things which she had handled, appreciation of the role they had played as faithful friends, and wanting that they must be given the same care and respect from hands that would handle them in future. She always spoke of handling things with respect, not as things, but as some living entities. That was her approach. And this entry of hers on March 3 is very typical, just before she left France. And on this 7th of March, 4 days later, she and Paul Richard, they left on Kagamaru, the Japanese ship that was sailing to India. The ship arrived in due time in Colombo. At that time there were no planes, and they had to pass a long route through the Red Sea, Arabian Sea, and they docked at Colombo. From there, they crossed the straits and took the train at Dhanushkodi to Viluppuram, the railway junction, about 22 miles from Pondicherry. And they took the train for Pondicherry on the 29th morning, early morning. And as the train was approaching Pondicherry, she saw from the center of the town a huge column of light, white light, soaring towards the sky, giving her confirmation that what she was seeking for was here. And the intensity of that light became more strong when she stepped on the soil of Pondicherry. That was on the 29th. And the rest I have anticipated. There is an interesting incident before they have reached India, and that is, while on the ship, she refers to an incident of two clergymen, British clergymen, who were on the ship, one an Anglican and one a Presbyterian. And Sunday was coming, and there was an argument between the two as to who was to conduct the service. So ultimately the Presbyterian held his position, and at the right time all people were assembled, were called for the service, and though it was so warm, she describes how they all put on their best clothes, had their hats and shoes, and trooped into the lounge to participate in the prayers. But she did not, mother did not join. So when they came back, and she notes that as soon as they came back, everyone went to the bar, to the playing of cards and places of amusement. So the clergyman who had noted that she had not joined, he came up to her and asked her why she had not attended. She told him, "Sir, I am sorry, but I don't believe in religion." Then he exclaimed, "Oh, you are a materialist." "No, not at all." "And then why?" She said, "If I were to tell you, you would be quite displeased. Perhaps it is better for me not to say anything." But he insisted so much that at last I said, "Just try to see. I don't feel that you are sincere. Neither you nor your flock. You all went there to fulfill a social duty and a social custom, but not at all because you really wanted to enter into communion with God." He was taken aback and he said, "Enter into communion with God? But we can't do that. All that we can say is to say some good words, but we have no capacity to enter into communion with God." Then she said, "But it was just because of that I did not go, for it doesn't interest me." That was not the end of the matter. Then he went on asking her many questions and revealed that he was going to China to convert the heathens. At this information, she became very serious and told him, look here, even before your religion was born, the Chinese, they had a very high philosophy and knew a path leading to the divine. And do you know that when they think of Westerners, they think of them as barbarians? And you are going there to convert those who know more about it than you. What are you going to teach them? So she asked him. He felt very embarrassed and he said, "I fear I can't be convinced by your words." She told him, "I am not trying to convince you. I only described the situation to you and how I don't quite see why barbarians should wish to go and teach civilized people what they have known long before you. That is all." And that was the end of the encounter. So this was when she was on the ship. And as I said, on the 29th, they disembarked at Dhanushkodi, took the train, and she had this vivid experience of the column of light ascending from the center of the town. They reached Pondicherry. I believe they stayed in Hotel Megri at that time. And they had an appointment with Sri Aurobindo in the afternoon at 3:30. But mother wanted to meet Sri Aurobindo alone. And so she came at 3:30 alone to meet Sri Aurobindo, who was staying at that time in what is known as guest house, opposite the physical culture department. And as she came, Sri Aurobindo was standing at the top of the stairs. She climbed up, and the moment she saw him, she describes, I climbed the stairway, and he was standing there waiting for me at the top of the stairs. Exactly my vision. She refers to a vision that she was having while in Paris, when she was seeing an oriental figure clad in special kind of clothes. She refers exactly my vision, dressed in the same way, in the same position, in profile, his head held high. He turned his head towards me, and in his eyes I saw that it was he. The two things joined like that. That means hers and his. And immediately the inner experiences became one with the outer experience, and there was a fusion, the decisive shock. She was there alone for some time, and I believe Paul Richard joined them later. The next morning, both of them went together. And referring to the previous day meeting, there is an entry, a famous entry in our diary. Where she refers, it matters little that there are thousands of beings plunged in the densest ignorance. He whom we saw yesterday is on earth. His presence is enough to prove that a day will come when darkness shall be transformed into light, and thy reign shall actually be established upon earth. O Lord, divine builder of this marvel, my heart overflows with joy and gratitude when I think of it, and my hope has no bounds. My adoration is beyond all words. My reverence is silent. This is dated March 30, 1914. The next day, on the 30th morning, both of them went to Sri Aurobindo. He was waiting in the same place, and she describes how they met. They both went up. There was a small table over which there was a blue cloth spread. So Sri Aurobindo was sitting on one side, Paul Richard was sitting on the other, but she was sitting on the ground, on the floor, below. She said her forehead just perhaps touched the edge of the table. And only these two were talking, and she was not speaking at all. She describes the scene. There was a table, I was seated on the veranda. There was a table in front of him, and Richard was on the other side facing him. They began talking. I sat at his feet, very small, with a table in front of me. It came just to my forehead, screening me a little. I said nothing. I thought nothing, tried nothing, wanted nothing. I simply sat near him. When I stood up, half an hour later, he had put silence in my head. That's all. Without my even having asked him, perhaps without his even trying. Oh, I had tried. For years I had tried to catch this silence in my head, but I never succeeded. I had done exercise upon exercise, all kinds of things, even pranayama, to make it shut up. Really, to make it shut up. I was able to go out of the body. That was not difficult. But inside it kept turning. So, all the mental constructions, all the mental speculative structures, all that, there was nothing left. A hole. And such a peaceful, such a luminous hole. Afterwards, I kept very still so as not to disturb it. I didn't speak. Above all, I refrained from thinking and held it tight, embraced it so tightly. I said to myself, make it last, make it last, make it last. Oh, how happy I was. It was really the reward of all my efforts. Nothing. I knew nothing any longer. I understood nothing at all any longer. Not one single idea was left in my head. Everything I had built through all my experiences and so many years of conscious yoga, of unconscious yoga, of life, of experiences lived through, classified, organized. Oh, what a monument! Everything came crashing down. It was magnificent. Everything was gone, absolutely gone, blank, as if I had just been born. And then, slowly, slowly, as though it were coming down drop by drop, again something was formed. But it had no limits. It was vast like the universe, and it was wonderfully tranquil and luminous. Nothing here in the head, but there, above the head. And then from up there, it began seeing everything. And it never left me. As proof of Sri Aurobindo's power, it is incomparable. A miracle. It never left me. I went to Japan. I did many, many things. I had every possible kind of adventure, even the most unpleasant. But it never left me. Tranquil, tranquil, tranquil. That is how she recollects her experience, where all her constructions, mental ideas, structures regarding the future of the world, regarding the work to be done, all that she had organized over the years, they were all wiped out, and it was an absolute blank. She found herself possessed by a silence for which she had tried and tried. And she says she didn't ask him. And you must have noted, she says perhaps he also didn't try to do it. But it took place in his presence. This never left her. Something, not exactly the same thing as what happened to Sri Aurobindo. After 3 days of meditation with Lele, he said that his mind got so silent, solid silence, that he could not think any longer. And for the rest of his life, that state continued. Whether he spoke, whether he wrote, whatever he did, he functioned from that mind of silence. You can say he was very contemplative. He had affinity with silence. But Mother was so dynamic. She was intensely concerned with everything that went around her. She took great interest. And for her, it is from this silence that she acted. For those of us who have seen only her external personality, watched her working on the surface level, it is difficult to believe that everything was welling out of this silence. This took place on the 30th of March. And thereafter, she was here for almost a year, and they were quite eventful days. We will take them up event by event from our next session.